Hi and welcome back to the Scale podcast. We are joined by Robert Hokin, who is from Greenbackers. Robert, welcome along.
Hi, thanks for having me here again.
No problem. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Greenbackers and what your role is there?
Well, I'm managing partner of Greenbackers. I founded the company about 14 years ago. I'm from Chicago, in case you haven't clocked the accent. I've been in the UK for 35 years, always in technology and finance. I started out my corporate career in M&A with some big brands, ABB and Marconi. And then I came into the Cleantech space about 20 years ago. I saw the opportunity there. And Greenbackers is basically a capital conduit. So what we do is we introduce funds to what we call oven-ready ventures, ventures to funds, and we make deals happen in the climate and clean tech space. The nature of the check sizes or the type of deals that we do are primarily seed stage, Series A, B, and C, so deals up to about 50 million.
Right, okay. So it's interesting that there's different levels of what you're doing there, and obviously the terminology means different things in different places based on the levels of business that are going through. But so what sort of criteria are you looking for in these companies when they're starting to scale? What sort of things are you looking for?
It's a good question, and we are a reflection of the funds that we are speaking to all the time, who are looking at these companies that we are presenting to them. We have a deal platform, a digital deal platform that we use to kind of bring the two tribes together. So we're looking for a number of things. We're looking at product market fit, so in other words, they have a technology that is ready to go or pretty much ready to go. We're looking at some level of revenue or close to revenue, where the funds are looking for some, what I would call market validation. So that the stuff works and that they can deploy it. We're looking at the management team and their ability to execute. We're looking for the addressable market. Is it sufficiently large? Is that going to excite investors, or if it's too small, it's going to turn them off? So we're looking at quite a number of factors. We actually put ventures, when they approach us for funding support, through their paces. If we don't think that they're investable, we don't take them forward. There's no point.
So interestingly, actually, you talked about the founding team and obviously the product market fit, and we've just had a presentation from Shane there about some of these companies really need to understand their, really have themselves in a good position to be able to go forward. Do you find a lot of the companies in Scotland are ready when they come to speak to you, or is it a case of go away, come back, and here's a few ideas, a few thoughts to get yourself in the right place?
A bit of a mix. So there is first and foremost, there is no shortage of clean tech talent in Scotland. We've seen some great companies. We continue to see some great companies, and we're tracking guys that aren't quite oven ready. They're not quite baked enough to for us to take forward as on a funding campaign. So we track those guys. So we never say get lost to anybody. But we're very keen to ensure that whatever we do to help them, there's going to be a positive outcome, and in their case, it's an introduction to a fund that's going to invest.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That journey is. Do you help these guys along? Do you give them that advice? As if they're not quite ready, they're not quite oven ready, a bit of support, a bit of advice, like you say. You don't just kick them out and send them on their way.
We do. We have an expectation that they have, if they have raised a funding round before, if they're not just a bootstrap startup and they've never raised a funding round. They probably won't have the level of, I don't like to use the word sophistication, but the level of experience that's needed. They need to understand what the process is. We'll coach them. We sit on every investor call that they will have. So it's not to hold their hands, but to steer the conversation, to make a warm introduction, to make that meeting matter, and also to follow up after the call, because that's where a lot of things get broken. Lack of follow-up, both on the fund side and the venture side. So we make sure that it happens.
And in terms of some of the sectors that you're looking at now, obviously Scotland has a strong wind power sector, I suppose. But are there other sectors you've seen that are starting to grow, and you think there's maybe real opportunities there?
Well, electrons are hot. There's no denying that. And the move on the energy transition from molecules from oil and gas into renewables, whether it's marine renewables or wind renewables or solar renewables, you know, there's some interesting solar projects happening in Scotland. A lot of people think, well, how can you have solar in Scotland? You know?
I know.
And I wondered about that initially, but you know, there are viable projects happening all over. We're seeing agritech opportunities as well. It's becoming an AI hotbed also. Yes. AI everything, well, not AI everything, but you know, when it comes into clean tech, you know, the ability to measure, to manage, to tag is very strong. I mean, I have to say we are a global program, but we really lean into Scottish founders and funds.
Okay. And so we were at a conference a few weeks ago and we were just discussing the levels of investment and there seems to be a feeling that some of the bigger companies are perhaps pulling back on their renewable investment. I just wanted to take advantage of the fact that you are an expert in this field. Why do you think there's a kind of, is there a softening of the opinion around renewables, you know, in terms of investment? Is there a kind of pullback a wee bit? Do you see that? Or is it just a case of, is that just paper talk and actually the industry is really thriving?
I don't dismiss it, but we just don't see it. And the reason that we don't see it is because, again, our program is global. So we don't just campaign Scottish startups, scale-ups to Scottish funds. We take them, well, the funds are everywhere, all over the world. We've got 4,000 funds in our universe that we have. It's kind of like our own homegrown version of Bohurst. You know, we speak to these funds. We understand what they're investing in. We've got a deal platform for 300 of them. It's a safe space for them to meet our opportunities, our deals. And that represents on its own, you know, billions of pounds of investment. So, no, I think although a particular sector might not be hot or sexy, there will be an investor, there'll be a fund somewhere that focuses on it. So our message to to founding teams is, don't give up. Keep pushing, but understand the market, understand the funds and their areas of focus. That's what we try to do on their behalf. So,
in terms of the Scottish ecosystem and the companies that are in this area, what sort of advice would you give them to try and, you know, make themselves more attractive to some of these funds that you're talking to?
Well, it's a you know, number one, be short, concise.
Right.
You know, there are a number of evidence points that we've heard today. You know, during the forum. Have an advisory board. It doesn't necessarily cost a lot to do that. I'd be surprised on the number of companies that don't opt to have, you know, strong advisors to help them, you know, steer through the shoals, and also investor questions as well. One question, and it gets under my skin a little bit, one of the best programs in the UK for Scottish companies is the Enterprise Investment Scheme. We ask that every conversation. You'd be surprised at the level and the number of companies that say, oh yeah, I've got to get around to doing that. That is absolutely critical for, you know, the funds that qualify under the EIS scheme, for any kind of angel investment or angel syndicate investment. And it is a weak spot, I think, for a lot of companies. And you know, not every company will qualify for that, but it's certainly something to look at. Another thing is, and I think I mentioned this during the plenary, the Global Scot Network is a hell of a resource to find, you know, these are expats, Scots, you know, it's work in the diaspora of Scottish executives around the world that want to give back something positive. You know, now that could be an advisor. Or it could be an introduction to a private funder that mattered. I would always advise startups to sweat the resources, and there is a surplus of you know, accelerator support. You've got Scottish Enterprise, SDI, Highlands and Islands, SOCI. You've got all these support agencies. I would observe, as an expat, as an outsider coming into this environment, I've only been here 35 years, but I would suggest that it's a little disorganized.
Really?
And I would love to see greater organization from all the delivery agencies, you know, to make sure that the Team Scotland approach is realized and that it happens.
A bit more coordination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. And so what are the challenges? So obviously we have set some ambitious targets around 2030 and around 2045, 2045. What can we do as a renewable energy sector to try and help us achieve that?
I think this is where government has to add a level of support. Countries of innovation don't happen accidentally. Public policy has the ability to really spur and incentivize greater investment, innovation, job creation. I'd like to see it more than it's doing currently. Okay. I don't like to see rollback on targets. Yeah. I'd like to see greater levels of investment. Yeah. Scotland certainly has the technology and the talent to be market leaders in this space. Why aren't they? They can be. Yeah. They should be. Yeah. No, and hopefully, if we're all working together, they will be.
Great. And just one final one, just around if somebody's looking to come and speak to Greenbackers, what can they do to tip your interest?
Greenbackers.com, and we have an open door policy for companies to approach us. We're going to make you fill out a form. It'll take you 5 minutes to do it. Upload your pitch deck. We review our deals every Wednesday. Okay. There's even a countdown timer on the website.
That on your website, yeah.
Yeah. So every 7 days we are reviewing. As I said, we don't tell anybody to get lost. No. If we don't think that we're the guys to help, we'll do our best to route them to sources of help. We have an ecosystem of support partners, not for capital, but for other things, such as foreign exchange, for grant funding, for human capital resources, you name it, even for EIS support. Yeah. So if they don't have the support that they need, we can help route them to it. Brilliant. And they can get that without even, without becoming a client. We just do that as part of what we do.
Thank you very much for your time, Robert. That was really good.
It's been a pleasure, Ewan. Thank you for having me.
That's great.